So, tell us your testimony. How did you come to faith in Christ?
Yeah, so I was raised in a Christian subculture. Maybe we believed the Bible, and then we kind of added on some extra things to help our holiness along a little bit. And when I say help our holiness along, I'm kind of air quoting that in my mind, because obviously Christ's holiness that we receive at salvation isn't something that needs help, but that it really did. It seemed to be a kind of a big part of this subculture that I was in. And so we had the Bible, and then we had a lot of extra things that we did, or maybe more accurately, a list of things that we did not do. And it's kind of weird. We were known more for the things that we did not do in the eyes of the outside world. But I don't know that we would ever say it this way, but we kind of had the goal of perceived perfection. And I don't think we ever verbalized it that way because, everyone knows that no one is perfect. So we couldn't say that because that would make us all of a sudden imperfect. But in real life, the way that it played out is that we really strove for perfection in the letter of the law, especially. And there were some good things that came out of that. I think that it drove me to be a better musician, a better student, a better whatever I was doing. I learned really well how to live on pennies because I could discipline myself perfectly with my budget. I could count calories to get my weight to whatever I wanted. So, that perceived perfection and striving for that, it did have some good things that helped me in my life. But I think that there's a really heavy downside when perfection and perceived perfection is the goal, because perfection and perceived perfection doesn't ever allow for grace to be shown or received. It doesn't allow for grace to be received or even understood. And so perfection and perceived perfection as a goal, it doesn't leave room for humility in relationships. I feel like it breeds arrogance and pride. And so when I first started to learn about grace as an adult, it changed my life. It totally changed my life. And, we've heard that, I've heard that there are Christians who dislike conversations of grace because they think that it gives people a license to sin. And when I hear that, I say, oh, those Christians don't understand grace then. They don't understand grace at all. Because when I learned about grace, it changed my life. But anyways, you asked about how I came to faith and my experience there. Of course, I knew the Bible from a very, very early age. And when I was very small, I remember I raised my hand in a children's church service one night. I think it was during special meetings or something like that. And I don't remember much. I remember that my mom took me into this little side room where we were at, and she had me repeat a prayer after her. And that's all I really remember. And then everyone told me, oh, you're saved. And they were really excited about it. And so I went along with it. Was I saved that night? I don't know. I don't really remember anything. I remember my mom being there, and I remember my feeling. And I don't remember a spiritual struggle. I don't remember reaching out to God in my heart. I remember saying the words I was told to say. Did I believe those words? Probably, I do know that for years afterwards, I would beg God every single night in bed to save me so that I would not go to hell. And that's horrible, especially because our church, I don't know if you've ever heard of watch night services, but on every New Year's Eve, we would have a watch night service. It was kind of the counterculture to the rest of the world partying on New Year's Eve. And so they had to provide some form of entertainment because we were going to be there all night. And so they would show these horrific films. And I realized how much I'm dating myself here because we didn't even have videos back then. We had films. And so we watched these horrific films of the rapture and of people being burned at the stake and people being thrown into hell. And I was little. I was like 4, 5, 6 years old. And I was so traumatized by those for years. And so I spent my whole childhood terrified that I was going to go to hell. I prayed every night to be saved. And looking back now, I think how grieved God must have been, because eternal salvation is amazing and wonderful and so important. But I think that his plan for a father-daughter relationship was supposed to be so much more than a fear-based ticket out of hell, you know? And so I was in my adult years, probably about 25 years old, before I realized that God actually cared for me, not just the whole world, but he cared for me and he delighted in me. And I wasn't just a constant disappointment to him. And when I realized that, it completely changed my life. It changed how I viewed myself, how I viewed God, how I viewed others. And that was a very long answer to the short question that you asked me. I'm sorry.
No, that was really good. It's interesting because the answer that you gave is very similar to answers we've received from other guests. So many Christians have had that experience where they prayed the prayer as a child, but are unsure if it was maybe an authentic experience or not.
Did I get the formula right? Did I say the exact right phrases? That kind of thing. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. And even myself, I kind of sort of had a similar experience to that. And I think the Lord works through those times of us being children and maybe not having all the faculties to understand all of that stuff. So I don't know. I try not to be too hard on us, like retrospectively, because we were just little kids, And I think God uses those imperfect experiences. But yeah, it's just interesting to hear the kind of same story from people so many times,
And God's grace covers all of that, like you said.
Yes, for sure.